We've been working to complete the regularization process. That is where the matters now stand. So today, we are granting conveyances to families who waited patiently, often quietly, for something they always knew was rightfully theirs. Today, the law finally meets lived reality. This moment matters because it is about people, real families, real names, and real lives. So today, well, we brought on 200 conveyances to be given out to families here, like the Rowe family, the Aldridge, the Saunders, the Coopers, Russells, families whose families whose stories are woven into the history of this island, families who stayed. What is key here? These are families who stayed when it would have been easier to leave. This administration has chosen to confront land reform directly. We have chosen to move files, settle claims, and close gaps that should never have been allowed to grow so wide. We have chosen to use the authority of the government as it was meant to be used, to resolve, to protect, and to restore confidence and to empower our people. Effective April 1st, all foods currently at 5% VAT will be VAT-free. Zero VAT on those food items.
Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Office of the Prime Minister. I'd like to wish everyone a Happy New Year, those of you I haven't seen so far, and hope that this year is a progressive and prosperous one for all of you. Well, this morning we will be speaking, or we'll hear a presentation from the Minister with Responsibility for Economic Development, Senator Michael Halkitis. As you know and just saw in that clip, Prime Minister Davis made a major announcement in his national address regarding the removal of VAT from foods. Obviously, that has huge implications for lowering the cost of living, which was, of course, one of the major priorities of the Davis administration. This morning, Minister Halkitis will share the implications of that for us. Please welcome Minister Halkitis.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Adley. Good morning to all. Those present and those joining virtually. I want to join Mrs. Adley in wishing all of you a Happy New Year. As Mrs. Adley said, the Prime Minister delivered a national address on Majority Rule Day this past Monday evening. And while he took the opportunity to give an update on several of the initiatives of the government, I think one of the item that has attracted the most commentary is the reduction or the elimination of VAT on food in the grocery store. And we have seen a reaction coming from some quarters questioning the timing of the announcement. And I just wanted to take the opportunity to speak to that and as well address another announcement that was made, two other announcements that was made by the Prime Minister in the address that has not gotten as much attention, but which we think will be a very, very significant incentive and concession for young people, especially those seeking to build a first home, get started in terms of building either a triplex, a duplex up to a triplex, whereby we are eliminating real property taxes on those units. And I'll speak a bit more about that later on. But I'll just take a few minutes to put into context the VAT elimination on food and address the point that has come from some quarters about the timing. And then, of course, I'll take your questions. But I want to just take a few steps backwards and reference March 2021, when the Progressive Liberal Party unveiled its economic plan. The Progressive Liberal Party economic plan titled Recover, Rebuild, and Revolutionize. Now, March 2021 was a full year before the 2021, it would have been at the time, the 2022 general elections were scheduled. And as we know, general elections were called 8 months early, and so we had elections in September 2021. But in March 2021, which at that time would have been a full year before elections were due, the Progressive Liberal Party unveiled its economic plan called Recover, Rebuild, and Revolutionize. And one of the main planks in this economic plan was a pledge to reduce VAT across the board from 12% to 10%. When that announcement was made, the Minister of State for Finance at the time, who is now the shadow minister on the F&M side for finance, called it a reckless announcement. But it is a commitment that we made to the Bahamian people. And so coming to office following the 2021 general elections in September 2021, having assessed the economic situation in the country, the Prime Minister then unveiled a 4-point strategy to rescue the economy. And those 4 points was first to open the economy and grow the economy, to promote economic growth. The second plank was improved revenue administration, meaning do a better job of collecting taxes that were outstanding, particularly large taxpayers, large businesses, foreign concerns, etc. The third plank was to control expenditure, and the fourth plank was to find and develop new sources of revenue. And we felt at the time that those 4 actions working together would put the public finances in a much better position. And we enunciated this plan within the context of course, coming out of still, as we know now, in the tail ends of the COVID pandemic, and of course, Dorian in 2019. And all of us in the Caribbean were impacted, and the Bahamas was impacted significantly, particularly when we look at the level of our public debt, having gone from 60% in 2019 to 100% in 2021. So 40% increase in the debt in just 2 years. In most cases, much worse than our Caribbean counterparts. But be that as it may, we developed this strategy. And I wanted to point to the fact of the announcement of the VAT reduction a full year before the general elections, because as I said, I'm addressing this point of the timing of this reduction. Effective January 1, 2022, having come to office in September 2021, effective January 1, 2022, in keeping with that commitment, we reduced VAT across the board from 12% to 10%. In May 2022, 5 months later, when we presented our first full budget to the Bahamian people, we came in and we did a massive reduction on customs duties, having already reduced VAT from 12 to 10. We then came in and eliminated customs duties on things like soy milk, almond milk, spinach, sweet peppers, prepared meats, peas and beans, lettuce, cucumbers, cabbage, carrots, beets, cauliflower, and celery. Totally eliminated customs duties on those healthy foods. And we went through and further, and not eliminated, but further reduced customs duties on 7 other categories of food items in an effort, again, to reduce the cost of food. And so when it relates to, specifically the chicken, which is much consumed in the Bahamas, we reduced the duty from 30% down to 10%. Reduced the duty on eggs from 30% down to 5%. So very, very early in this administration, beginning 3 months after we came to office, we reduced the VAT across the board. 6 months later, we did a massive customs reduction on food. And as well in that budget, we also reduced duty on a number of construction items in an effort to reduce the cost of building, because again, at that time, we saw the massive escalation in the prices of building materials. Later on that same year, October 11th, 2022, Prime Minister announced an increase in the minimum wage from $210 per week to $260 per week, which was another commitment in our economic plan, our pre-election economic plan. And that increase in minimum wage was made retroactive to July 1st, 2022 for public servants, and it came into effect January 1st, 2023 for the private sector. And it is noteworthy that this was only the second time in 20 years that the minimum wage was increased. The last time the minimum wage was increased before that was in 2015, when it was increased from $150 to $210. At that same time, in October 2022, the government announced the expansion of price controls. As you might know, about 22 or so items are on the price control list, and there's an additional what they call extended list. But we expanded price controls to hundreds of other grocery items as well for 6 months, as well as for 3 months on medicine. We expanded the number of items that came under price control. And what does that mean? We expand, when items are under price control, there's a limit on the markup that retailers can put on those items. And so we said, we have this limited number of things on price control, we're gonna expand that, because again, at that time, people were around the world and in the Bahamas being impacted by the increased cost of living. I won't go into the political part of it, but I'll tell you that, of course, when we increased the minimum wage, we got opposition to that. It was said that that would cause an increase in unemployment. And when we expanded the number of items under price control, we were criticized for not talking enough about it. It was said that we should talk some more about it, and instead of doing something about it. In the 2023-2024 budget, we continue to reduce custom duties on some remaining food items as well as on building materials. And we did some other measures there, for example, in the area of public transportation, increasing the exemption where individuals can bring a vehicle in duty-free up to 5 years old. And so that was a real boon, a benefit for those in the public transportation industry. And so I wanted to give a bit of that historical perspective to show that even before the Progressive Liberal Party was elected in this last election, we had made a commitment to reduce taxes, and as soon as we came in, we targeted particularly the areas of food, medicine for the reduction of taxes. And as you know, last year we reduced VAT on food from 10% to 5%. And this, in the Prime Minister's announcement this past Monday, he announced the total elimination of VAT on food, unprepared food sold in the grocery store. No VAT on grocery, to be precise. And so I wanted to demonstrate that this is a continuation of our commitment that began even before the election. And so it is not timed to coincide with any upcoming election that is due within a year, but just a continuation of our stance in terms of reduction of VAT on food. And I would say that sitting in meetings with the Prime Minister, with the technical team from the Ministry of Finance, the Prime Minister had indicated to us as far as 3 years ago that he wanted to move towards the total elimination of VAT on food. And now we are at the position, because of the improvement in our public finances, the growth in the economy. I would share with you that in October of this year, the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, revised upwards the growth projection of the Bahamian economy for both 2025 and 2026 from under 2% to over 2%. And this was within the context of uncertainty in the global economy. So we feel very confident that we can, because of the growth that we experience in the economy, we can absorb any revenue loss associated with this reduction. And we're happy that the plan that we put in place at the very beginning has yielded results that we can now pass back to the Bahamian people. I just wanted to, at the end of the Prime Minister's address, he referenced the fact that we will, beginning in 2026, owner-occupied triplexes and duplexes and triplexes. Historically, what has happened is if an individual built a duplex, resided in one side, and rented the other side that was subject to real property tax, and we will be amending the legislation to make that other side exempt as well. We recognize that many Bahamians, when they are starting out, so to speak, they build a duplex or they build a triplex, they live on one side and they rent the others, and that is a form of income. And as well, many people have the vision that they would rent the one side and use that to pay the mortgage. Historically, over the years, that has been subject to property tax. We will now be making the amendments, and that would be a tremendous boon, particularly to young Bahamians who are just starting out in owning property, so to speak. And so we will be amending that legislation, and we'll share more details with the public. In addition, the Prime Minister announced that the first-time home exemption ceiling will be raised from $500,000 to $600,000. And what that means is no taxes applicable on those conveyances, et cetera, and mortgages once the house or the property is valued at $600,000 or less. Again, this represents a significant saving to individuals who are buying their first home, where they are no longer liable to pay those fees. That initiative was first introduced, I recall, under the Perry Christie administration, and we have steadily increased that ceiling, and now we will be increasing it again, seeking to address the issue of the cost of home ownership. So, in conclusion, we're very, very happy with the progress that we've made so far. And as the Prime Minister said at the outset of his presentation, we're happy with our progress, but by no means is the work done. Too many Bahamians have not yet felt the growth in the economy, and so we continue to work to ensure that the benefits flow down to all levels of our society. And so our work is by no means done, but we're happy to be able to, as a result of some of the improvements that we've seen, to be able to pass some benefits back to the Bahamian people. I'll stop there, and I'll take any questions that you might have.
Is the government considering at all taking VAT off of medication?
The trend is there's several things in the works. We are expanding the national prescription drug plan. Minister of Health has indicated that we expect to see that well in excess of 150,000 individuals enrolled where they can have medications duty-free. And so all those things are not duty-free, free. But as well, you know, we are looking, again, to continue this trend of reduction. And so more people on the national prescription drug fund where they can get their medication duty-free is moving along. And we will continue to analyze the possibility of removal. I would say, I'll just add this, that, you know, the government has been in a mode of reduction. We're also calling on the private sector, particularly, I will say, pharmaceutical retailers. If you go and you purchase a prescription, you'd look on your bill and you'll see something called a dispensary fee, which in many cases is more than the VAT. This is something that we are analyzing at the Consumer Protection Commission. It is our view, definitely it is my view, that it is arbitrary. And so we're asking them as well to look within themselves and see how they can have some cost savings passed on to Bahamian people by examining something like a dispensary fee, which is a fee just added on. I mean, people are already paying for the medication, and so to add a dispensary fee with, in my opinion, no rhyme or reason for it and how it's calculated, that adds to the cost. And I say that to say that the government of the Bahamas, this administration, we have been in reduction mode. I've listed all of the, not all, but the majority of the reductions in terms of customs duties and as well as VAT on food and other items. We have to ensure that those things are passed on and that it is not just added to profit. And so it is incumbent upon, you know, not only us in the government, but as well the private sector to help to address this issue of affordability by where they can, ensuring that, you know, all savings that they get are passed on to the end consumer.
Has the government considered if grocery stores will meet the deadline for April? Go
ahead.
actually spoke to the supervising president where they mentioned that it would be a huge task to adjust all of these prices by the deadline.
I'm sure that if they dig deep, they'll be able to do it. What we have done is consistently, whenever we've made the changes, we've given a period of 3 months. We believe that with the automation and, you know, these point of sale systems and inventory management systems, if they apply themselves to it, they should be able to do it. I'm sure they can do it. We think 3 months is sufficient time.
Any additional measures being put in place to ensure that there is a price gouging heading into this VAT reduction? You know, that was a challenge before where consumers would say VAT's going down, but they're still increasing the prices ahead of time.
Well, you know, the key to that and the solution to that in my mind is competition and the ability to shop around. The price control list is a limited list, and so that is the list that we can actually police in terms of the prices and the markup. We will appeal to the, I don't want to say conscience, but I'll say conscience anyway, of those involved in the industry to recognize that globally citizens are tackling the issue of affordability. The government has stepped forward to bring some relief, and we're asking them to pass it on.
That price control is what goes into that. How can that be expanded, or is that something that has to be a collaborative effort between government and the store?
It has been the same for a long time, and you get different opinions as to how effective it is. But what it is basically is you on certain items, you allow merchants to, after they've accounted for their costs, what it costs to buy it and get it and put it on the shelf, you allow them a certain percentage markup. And so you limited the amount that they can mark it up. But for example, if that item costs more to bring in because the prices are more expensive in the States or wherever it's coming from, again, the effectiveness of price control is limited because you're limiting the markup. You cannot really impact how much they pay for it. A lot of it is an honor system. But you know, I think for the most part, and I can say for the most part, when our inspectors have gone out and they've come back to do inspections, for the most part, they've said that, you know, merchants are in compliance in terms of the markups, et cetera. So it's not we did a temporary expansion, of the price control list, as I said, back in October 2022, to bring some relief because prices, you know, around the world, including the Bahamas, were really skyrocketing. That was a temporary measure. We're confident that with this reduction, we should see some prices continue to go down. While we do other things like trying to explore ways to increase competition, trade diversification, cutting out the middleman, trying to do something about shipping, because, you know, to cut the cost of the imports. Yes? Sorry to cut you off. We estimate for the year about $15 million, 1-5.
And can you say how the government plans to, I guess, make up?
We, as I said, we back in October, we were forecasting when we prepared our budget in you know, running up to May last year. We were operating on the assumption, on the projection that the economy will grow by about 1.8, 1.9%. We've had that revised up by the IMF to, I think it's like 2.1%. So we believe that with the growth in the economy, more economic activity, more employment, we're seeing unemployment trending down, more economic activity, that would help to increase the revenue.
So can you say how?
And as well, the and that's for the whole year. This comes into effect April 1st. So you will have April, May, and June impact on this budget. And we have some further developments, some positive developments in terms of particularly the domestic minimum top-up tax, that we will see some more taxpayers coming on in the next period. So we are confident that we can absorb it and it wouldn't significantly negatively impact our budget. Mm-hmm.
Can you speak to some of the criticism that came from the head of the Clearing Bank Association, basically that the VAT cut was an inequitable way of trying to reduce the cost of living?
Well, you know, did he say that or did the other person say that?
Well, that, you know,
I thought he said it was uninformed or something.
it was uninformed because both the high earners and low earners pay
Oh.
back to the reduction.
We
in
have-
GDP.
Okay, I'll say this. First of all, I'll say that, as I said earlier, Prime Minister indicated to us as long as 3 years ago that he wanted to see the eventual elimination of VAT on food. And so we've done it gradually. And so now we're at a position where 1st of April it's going to be the total elimination. And we took that time because we were getting the public finances in order and making sure we were in the right position to do it. And you know, we thank the public for their patience with us. To the issue of inequity, we do not have a progressive income tax in this country, which is, some people would say, the most equitable form of taxation. The more you earn, the more you pay. Income tax for individuals and for businesses. We don't have that. We don't see that anytime in the future. It's a massive reform. And so we are left with things like customs duties, VAT, property tax, business license fee, et cetera. We have gone from, we think it's an improvement, from relying almost exclusively on customs, not almost exclusively, but to a big extent on customs duties. We've shifted it to a VAT, which we think it's an improvement. It's not ideal. Some people call it a regressive tax. Perhaps it is. But in the absence of a massive tax reform, this is something that we can do that impacts virtually everyone in the country in a positive way. And so in a perfect world, we have a progressive income tax, it's well administered, et cetera. We do not have that. I don't know the appetite of the Bahamian people for that. It's certainly nothing that's on our agenda in the immediate future. So in the absence of that, we use the tools that we have.
Can you say how the first half of the financial year for 2025-2026 is going?
It's going pretty well, as to be expected. Now, we will be issuing some reports. You'll see some reports coming out. I think the first quarter is due soon. So you'll see the positivity in that. I would just like to remind the public that our budget year is not in a straight line. So traditionally, the first half has been slower in terms of revenue than the second. We saw that last year. There's a lot of commentary last year about the size of the half-year deficit and will you make your projection? We did make it because we explained that the revenue picks up around the second half when things like business license, property taxes, and those bank fees come in, and so it is a pretty much what we expected.
And I guess lastly, there were some legislative changes for consumer protection, trade, also renters and tenants that were discussed last year. How far are we in that process right now?
The consumer protection consumer protection legislation is in place. We continue to consult on the rental protection, rent control, some people call it, and competition authority is something that we're studying. We're getting some expert advice on how to tackle it. We believe that, for example, the solution to the rental problem is to build more inventory, We know that in the Bahamas, around the Caribbean, around the region, there is a housing shortage because a lot of what we call long-term rentals, the apartments, et cetera, have been taken out of the long-term pool and put into the Airbnb. And so those are not available for rent, and so the prices go up. The solution, we think, is to build more inventory, and we are consulting with some advisors on how to best do that. And so you'll hear some things about that very shortly, how we structure ourselves and how we get to the point where we're building more affordable inventory. And mobilizing the private sector as well to get in on it, because the government can't, the government is limited in the amount of, for example, houses that it can build in rental units. But some things are in the works.
And can you clarify if the VAT cut on the grocery items is like a temporary relief you're saying or permanent? I mean, because just to give context.
As long as the Progressive Liberal Party is in power, VAT on grocery will be zero.
And my other question would be, I mean, even though a lot of Bahamians are happy to see.
I say that to say, when you say it's temporary, I can't speak for what any other person would do. I can just say what we would do. And the reason I went through that introduction was to show there's a trend, and we've been moving towards this point, and now we're at zero. I wish we could go to below zero, but sorry, go ahead. So it's not temporary.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to ask even though a lot of Bahamians are happy for this rent relief, it's still the question that the cost of living is still high. Many organizations like Hands for Hunger are mentioning that we're grateful for this, but this doesn't solve the main issue that people are still struggling. So I don't know if the government is planning to give us more cuts.
Like I said, we can't go below zero. But as I said when I was doing my introduction, as the Prime Minister said, and I saw the headline today, there's a lot of work left to be done. We have an improvement. We have unemployment going down, more people working. Many have not been touched. The cost of living, frankly, is still too high. We have to address that by increased agricultural production, by diversifying the source of some of our where we get our imports. But the stubborn thing is that if you've followed the international news, it's the same thing. You know, our brothers in the U.S. are complaining about the cost of living and the price of food, et cetera. And so, and because we import, you know, we buy, if the prices are going up there, you're paying a higher price for it there, and so you bring it here, the price is higher. The part of the solution is increase local production. You know, finding new sources of, you know, maybe cutting out the middleman, looking at logistics, how we ship things in. So all of that. And so we hear, I mean, we hear what they say, and so we continue to work to build the economy. Prime Minister spoke extensively in his presentation about the upskill program, which is designed to target individuals who might be working, but if they can improve their skills, get some more qualifications, then they get a better job, more pay, and they can you know, tackle this affordability situation. And so we recognize that all the work is not done. There's a lot of work left to be done, and we're looking to attack it on all angles, including upskilling, improving the economy, et cetera. You good? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister, for that very comprehensive report. So I'll just ask now if there are any additional questions. No one had an additional question?
Is there any update on government's legal battle with the Grand Bahama Port Authority?
Well, as far as I am advised, that arbitration, which was initiated, could be resolved and a decision announced any time from now. I noticed that there is also in the headlines a discussion among a group of business persons who are proposing to offer an alternative to the port. That is not something that this office has been formally in any sort of discussions about, but suffice it to say that the government and the Prime Minister awaits that decision. That arbitration, of course, was initiated in the interest of removing many of the deterrents to development in the city of Freeport and by extension the island of Grand Bahama. So the Prime Minister looks forward to a decision on that arbitration, which could come any time from now.
The Prime Minister had also mentioned that some updates were expected to come directly related to Grand Bahama and what's being done to help them in particular, but he didn't indicate when he would be presenting that address in the House of Assembly. Are you able to give us a timeline on when we can expect that?
Stay tuned is all I can tell you on that. All right. All right, thank you very much, everyone. Have a good afternoon.